المشاركة التالية كاثرين ريا سيليمان من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
Good morning, everybody. It is great to be here, and I am going to tell you, that's the slide I was looking for, how I came here from there through curiosity. I moved to this beautiful town in Massachusetts when I was 12. My family moved there after living in Italy for 3 years, where my father served in the U.S. Army as a doctor. You know, this town has about 3,500 people in it. It dates back to 17th century colonial America. They weren't used to having many people move in there, especially a family like us. We had just come from overseas. But once they got to know us, they welcomed us. And of course, I was most concerned about being accepted and making new friends. So that all ended very well. But I think we all want to be accepted, and more than just being tolerated. We want people to respect our religion, respect our way we dress, the way we look, the way we appear, even if it's not always quite normal as what we would like it to be. So how do we do this? How do we become welcoming people? Well, one way is to foster a culture of curiosity in our communities, in our families, within ourselves. I mean, we can all study a foreign language, read a book, try a different cuisine, travel abroad, but we must expose ourselves to the unfamiliar. That's what I did, maybe by accident, but it's still what happened to me. In high school, I couldn't wait to go overseas. I'd already been curious because I knew that I had the experience in Italy. So I applied to a foreign exchange program. And I expected at 16 years old that I would spend my summer in Europe. Well, this exchange program wanted to send me to Turkey. I didn't even know where Turkey was. And I told I said, maybe I don't really want to go. But my father said, no, this is a great opportunity for you to learn something new. So I don't even think I'd be here today had I not gone on this program. So the Turkish family that I lived with that summer wanted to, make a better life for itself. They welcomed me in their home so I could teach English to their older daughter who wanted to go to college. My Turkish mother was a widow, and she wore the headscarf, and she prayed 5 times a day in this little apartment, and it looked to me as if it was a signal for her little boy Abdullah to jump on her back and play. The rest of us tiptoed around the apartment and went about our business, but I became so intrigued by this new religion and her faith, and so I studied more about Islam, and I became to be very passionate about Islamic art and architecture, and I really am a big fan of Arabic calligraphy. But back to Turkey. I didn't know a word of Turkish, and that little boy, Abdullah, just did not understand how that could be. Sometimes when I sat down, he would hop on my lap, grab my shoulders, and shake me back and forth, and say his Turkish words very slowly, thinking maybe I'd understand. And when I couldn't, he just would take his hand to his forehead and just say, this woman is just unbelievable. She can't understand me. But we did know how to communicate, because I learned to adopt their traditions into my daily routine. I took my shoes off at the door. I put somebody else's slippers on, and I cupped my hands to take the drops of Turkish cologne every time I walked into a Turkish home. I learned to roll grape leaves, stuff vegetables, and pit cherries every time, with the women. When I went back to high school in Massachusetts, I used to wear the little Turkish scarves that I brought back with me. And I remember one of the boys in my class said, "When are you going to dress normally again?" Well, I thought to myself, probably never. But not everybody understood why I would want to go overseas so far away. But there were many who did, and they went off on their own foreign exchange programs in the future. So by the time I wanted to go to college, I wanted to live an international life. So I studied international relations at Tufts University. While I was there, I became very curious about the Middle East. And so I started looking for study abroad programs. And I chose to go spend my junior year abroad at the American University in Cairo. When I landed in Egypt in 1979, I was following my passion and certainly my curiosity. At AUC, I started studying Arabic and found I really liked the language. I saw so many things, the pyramids in Giza, the tombs in Luxor and Aswan, and I went on this incredible trip all around the Levant with a group of American students. Well, we did see the ravages of war in Beirut, but we also managed to go skiing in the mountains not far away. We wandered through the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, and we took horses, rode horses through the narrow sea to Petra in Jordan. All along the way, we shared tabbouleh, hummus, shawarma with the people who lived there, and they talked to us and told us about their lives and the challenges that they faced. The Middle East became so much more than headlines. Well, here I am, back in the Middle East, this time living in the Gulf, in Kuwait. It's 2016, and when I think back of that memory, it's more than 30 years ago, there are two things that stand out. The first one is the fun we had living in the all-women's hostel with the Arab female students. But it was 1979, and these women all wore mini skirts, the tight pants, the beautiful hairdos, and the glamorous makeup. Whenever they went out of the dorm, they looked like models. As for me, I tended to wear jeans and t-shirts because that's what we wore in America back then. But all of us together, we wanted a good education, and we wanted to pursue careers. At night, we'd sit around in the common area and we'd tell stories and we'd laugh and have lots of fun. But we learned that we really had very different backgrounds and that our expectations about how we would live would be very different. I have no doubt that we must have been a bit overwhelming as American women who grew up in the 1970s in the United States. This was the peak of the women's liberation movement. But I hope that the Arab women in our dorm knew how much we were enchanted by learning about all their traditions and cultures. The other thing that we thought of that comes to mind is when the American hostages were taken in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. And I only say that because the very next day, the Egyptian government placed troops all around the university. I thought, well, we must stand out as an American institution, and not everybody likes Americans. Extremism was beginning to take root, and people were beginning to say, well, we don't want foreign cultures, we don't want different ideas anymore in our societies. We didn't think much of it as students, but when I look back now, it does seem like extremism has grown, and extremism is the antithesis of curiosity. So these past 30 years, I've mainly been working and living in the diplomatic world, and most recently I've accompanied my husband to tours in Tunisia, Jordan, Turkey, and now Kuwait. We loved Jordan. I mean, it was a wonderful place to raise our kids, and their favorite memory is going camping, rolling down the sand dunes and climbing up the red rock cliffs of this incredible desert. We also made some really good friends in Jordan, like Virginia and Larry Foley. Virginia was a former social worker, and Larry was once a Peace Corps volunteer in India in the 1960s. He also was a juvenile probation officer in California, helping kids to not fall through the cracks and lead a life of being criminals. He later joined the Agency for International Development and was helping deliver fresh water to people. Anyway, so, the other thing about Larry, though, is he totally loved to help people, but he also was this big, burly Irish guy who liked to play cards on the weekends and tell a lot of jokes. We got to know him because we took care of their dog, Bogart, a beautiful golden retriever, whenever they went traveling. Well, on October 28th, 2002, Larry Foley was shot 5 times in the head in his driveway on his way to work. His wife, Virginia, found his body. I still remember the huge U.S. military aircraft landing on the tarmac in Amman and to take Larry's body home. My husband and I had the honor of taking his dog, Bogart, onto the plane. Extremists killed Larry. They didn't care who he was or what he represented. They only believed in what they wanted to believe, and their way was the right way. I hope we can all do more by creating and nurturing this culture of curiosity that can prevent people from falling into this deadly trap of extremism. I didn't have to tell you the story about Larry because these things are happening not every day, thankfully, but all too often, all around the world. And it really is horrifying, and it makes me wonder sometimes if the extremism in the region isn't causing people to be less open and less curious. Well, I am actually very hopeful because here in Kuwait, I am meeting people every day who are doing new things and thinking of new ideas. They're the entrepreneurs, they're the artists, they are the volunteers. I know because I see them in the palm of my hand. I follow them on Instagram. And as for me, I just hope today I've persuaded you to constantly nurture your spirit of curiosity. It's so easy for us to stay home, sit on the couch, relax. But now, more than ever, we have to get out there, meet new people, learn new things, expose ourselves to the unfamiliar. That way, we all will remain open, curious, and accepting individuals. Our lives will be less about fear and suspicion and more about compassion and understanding. Now, curiosity will eventually bring knowledge, and knowledge will make us live healthy and productive lives. So for all ages, so let's always stay curious. Thank you.